Hello, I'm Andrew Weigand, and this is the CGT 255 final project, The Secret of the Wind. So I collaborated on this project with Emily Shirley and Lainey King, and for my part, I was a programmer. So let me go through the various code I made for this project. So to start, we have the character itself as a third-person game, by the way. So begin play. It starts by creating a title screen, which is done for this custom event, and it sets the focus to the viewport and creates the widget that overlays the title screen, pauses the game, and sets this boolean on title screen to true. And then when you press enter, if on title screen is true, it removes the widget, unpauses the game, sets the boolean to false, creates the basic HUD, and it also does this, which I'll get to a little later. And if first play is true, it spawns a tutorial to let you know the basics of the game. And either way, it removes again the title screen, because it is possible to exit the game and go back to the title screen. So anyways, this is a various data collection. Particularly, it's collecting total jumps, deaths, damage, items collected, and items used. So here's this calculate HP proportion. So what it does is it divides the current HP by the max HP. The same can be said for the MP proportion. And these work how you expect them to for an RPG. But the HP and MP proportions can be seen right here in the HUD. You see you got the HP bar and the MP bar, and if you look at the graph, you can see that there's the binding for the HP and MP proportion. Additionally, it'll show here the number of HP and MP you have. So if we go back to the character, there's also calculations for when the character levels up. Again, this works a lot like how you expect it to with a RPG. So if current level is less than 98, so 99 is the max level, let's see. It will reset your experience as seen here, and it will add to your attack, defense, HP, and MP stats, and recalculate the HP and MP proportion, and it'll briefly create a widget telling you that you've leveled up, and in 1.5 seconds, just remove it. So this is, due to time constraints, the level up system is simply adding a set amount of attack, defense, HP, and MP. If I had more time, I would make that a more randomized system, more akin to how most RPGs work. Anyways, in the event of a player death, which happens if the HP is 0. It'll reset your location to these specified coordinates, reset your HP and MP, calculate the proportions, and add to the death count. So, so if you overlap an item or a currency pickup, it'll set these booleans to true, and if you end overlap, it'll set them to false. And what that does is, if you press left click, if the overlapping item is true, then it will do calculations to pick up the item. So as you can see here, the current amount of items you can have is 10. And if you have more than 10, it'll tell you you have too many items. If not, it'll add to your item, and that is done with an array of items right here. And each item has its own index number to determine the item type. So if we go to the item, you see that its index number determines its name right here. And if you go to the pause screen, which is where the code for using the items is, you can see right here we got the calculation for the item image, which I know this is very convoluted and should probably be a bit improved in the future, but for right now we have a series of if statements to determine exactly what number in the array we are and which item slot we're in. So you see we got the 10 slots right here. Additionally, in terms of actually getting any effect out of the items, you have a series of custom events. Apple Heal, this will heal 10 HP. Bread Heal, heals 20 HP. Magic Necklace Heal, heal 10 MP. And the Magic Crystal Heal will heal 20 MP. And either way, it will increase the amount of items used. So back to the character. See the currency, that's a lot simpler. Just if your currency is below the max of 9999, it will give the specified amount of currency in the currency pickup. And that's for, we didn't have time to implement an actual shopping system, but that's what that would be for. And then finally, if you left click without overlapping any items, then assuming you have more than 0 MP, you will attack. So you see here when you attack, it plays an attack animation, and it sets the location of the attack to this box right here, and it will then, after it spawns, the attack itself will increase its X value. And then there's this can attack. This is done to have a bit of cooldown, so you can't just spam your attack. It'll decrease your MP, recalculate the MP proportion, then it sets can attack to true, and then after another 0.5 seconds, it'll destroy the blast, so it's not going on forever. Alright, and finally for the character, we have right here this code. This on jumps increases the jump count, and this code for a footstep sound effect. So every second it's checking if the character is moving and if they are in the air. And if it's moving and if they're not in the air, then it will play the sound effect, which is on a loop. And it also says Boolean now walk to true. And then if either of these are false, any second it sets now walk to false, and it stops the sound effect. Alright, so now let's take a look at the enemy class, because this is where most of the attack and losing HP calculations take place. So on event add experience, it will simply add experience if your level is lower than the max, and level up if, it levels up if the experience is equal to the experience to next level. Adding player damage, so this is if the if this hitbox, which is only active a certain interval of time, we'll get to that later, is overlapping the player character, then it will set damage jump to player to enemy attack minus enemy defense. And of course, if damage jump to player is less than 0, then it will be set to 0, so attacks don't actually heal HP. And then it removes that amount of HP from the character, recalculates the proportion, and if HP is 0 or less, the player dies. Next we have this add enemy damage, which is a lot of the same thing. If the wind blast is overlapping the enemy's hitbox, then it'll set damage down to enemy to player attack minus enemy defense. Again, to make sure you're not healing the enemy, it will set damage down to enemy to 0 if it's less than 0. And then it'll subtract that from the enemy's HP, and if the enemy's HP is less than 0 or 0, the enemy will die. And then you got the enemy death events, which make the enemy it adds experience, and then it makes the enemy leave the screen. It also displays a widget that tells you that you successfully defeated the enemy, telling you how much experience currency you got. Then it will say you defeated the enemy type. And yeah. So then for the enemy we have if the enemy's index number is 1, it'll set it to this enemy type, the Mouse Spirit, and it sets its HP, attack, defense, experience yield, and currency yield. Again, this is something that I would like to make more randomized in future iterations of this game, but this is what I have for now. And then you have its notice sphere, wherein if the player is overlapping it, it fills the character reference and sets its Boolean chasing play to true. And also if excuse me, if the wind blast goes into its notice collision, then it will also start chasing the player. And then we have these calculations here to make it such that essentially when it is attacking the player, it will essentially move to the player's location and chase them. And then its attack timer increases every second, and if it's equal to 75, then it will attack, check to see if it's overlapping the player, and if such, it will attack the player, and the attack timer then resets. So that's pretty much it for the enemies. So now let's move on to just a few other things. So this right here is the enemy spawner, so enemies aren't just on the field, instead they come into the field when you reach a certain location. So as you can see, it's just a hitbox. And when we hit it, there's a spawner index number, so if it's equal to 1, it spawns a certain amount of enemies in specific locations, then sets this is active to false to make sure that you can't infinitely spawn enemies. Again, if this were a whole game, I would put some sort of timer on that so that eventually you can reset the enemies, so there's not a finite amount of enemies, because every RPG has grinding and infinite enemies, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's basically it for the spawner. For the goal, this is an area where you complete the alpha version of the game. All it does is, if you reach it, then it'll tell you, thank you for playing the alpha version of our game. Disable input, quit the game. For items, all that really exists here, because all the item calculations are in the pause screen, is determine the name of the item. Here we have the tutorial. So this right here is another hitbox where if you hit it, then it'll give you a message. So again, a boolean to make sure it only happens once. Disable input temporarily, set this already view to true, and it'll create a text box, and depending on the tutorial index number, it will give various text. So yeah, you got 2 lines of text, as you can see. I'll get to that later as well. And then after 3 seconds, it removes it and lets you move again. So I already went through this. This is the basic HUD, which I already went through. You got the HP and MP, and you got 2 bars that are balanced to it, and you also have the crosshairs in the center of the screen. Alright, and then you have this, and I already went over most of this, but here you got the use item, and this shows the item description. So if you hover over an item, it will just give you a quick rundown of what it is. A very basic: apple heals 10 HP, bread heals 20 HP. I already went over that. And then you have the exit button, which will simply remove the pause screen. Pressing R will also do that. And this, if you click the button, this is what actually makes you use the button. It also removes the item from the array. And then this is the hovering that lets you view the item description. And this is the unhovering, which simply removes the description. And that's about it. And then finally there's this exit, or the quit game button. If you press it, it will create a quit prompt, which asks you, do you want to quit the game? If no, then it simply removes it and you move on. If yes, then you create the title screen once again. Remove from parent, the basic HUD, and yeah, you're back on the title screen. Next is these results, which simply tells you, I already went over this, who is defeated, how much experience, how much currency you got, and it removes itself after 1.5 seconds. And finally, you have the text box itself. I didn't say that a lot, but essentially what you have here is a stylized box and then 2 lines of sample text that can be filled in with pretty much anything. So that is essentially it for my contributions to The Secret of the Wind. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.